Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera Dent, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of my Dental A Team family. I seriously love doing this podcast. I thought I was going to hate it, and I love it. I love it so much because I get to connect with you. I get to hear how this podcast is helping you and your practice be better. So if you have loved this podcast and you are willing to share, I would greatly appreciate if you'll share with your friends, if you'll leave us a review, if you'll give us 5 stars, anything you can do. Just like you guys grow your practices, we're trying to grow this podcast to positively impact the world of dental. This is how we get to grow our Dental A Team family. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental A Team podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
2 perspectives, 1 mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I am lucky to have Lara kind enough to realize I overbooked myself just a few times. So we were supposed to podcast last night, and she was kind enough to wake up early today to podcast with me after she had surgery on her arm because, you know, she's one of those awesome hygienists that also fell victim of carpal tunnel. So not only is she recovering from surgery and waking up early to podcast, but she's one of my favorite people. You guys, make sure you check out her last podcast of Hygiene. She talks all things hygiene. We've talked sleep apnea. We've chatted about disease diagnosing, and we're going to do some more today. So Lara, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Kiera. We're doing great here on the East Coast. I hear you might be closer to my end of the world, but you know, still far away.
I am. It made it a little easier to coordinate times being on your same time zone this go. So, you know, for all you West Coasters, we're up before you're even thinking about waking up. So it's a good morning over here.
It sure is. Hopefully the sun's shining where you are because it is where I am too.
Oh, it's actually dreamy McDreamy right now. I mean, I can't complain. We're in October, end of October, and I've got sunshine and sunrises in Florida, so I can't complain. Where are you today?
I am in my lovely home in Pennsylvania. So we are looking for the, as we call it, leaf peaking season. So we are very close to all of our leaf changes. It's either going to be between, it's usually the last week or 2 of October. So we're around that time period. So we're really excited to get our leaves in their fall colors.
Oh, it's beautiful on the East Coast. And I did not know that being a leaf peeper was a real thing. I researched this last year and I was like, guys, I'm a leaf peeper. I am obsessed with foliage, but I didn't know that was an actual term for people like me that are obsessed with fall leaves. So, you know, leaf peeping. It is a thing. I feel silly. I'm like, I'm a leaf peeper. What are you? Like, who are you?
People wonder, they kind of look at you sideways when they don't really know what that is.
Well, you know, because we know other words that involve peeping. So, you know, leaf peeper and a peeping Tom, totally different things. So,
Two totally different things.
I love it. I love it. You are going to have some gorgeous fall weather here really soon. So, and I'm excited. I love fall. Fall is seriously my favorite time of year. It's actually why I got married in October because, you know, redhead, all those golden colors, they make my photos look a little better. So I'm excited for you to have those fall leaves coming your way.
It'll be great. It's always a visual cacophony of loveliness.
I know. And I didn't used to like fall. Guys, sorry, we're going on a rampage on fall right now, but just hang on with us. We've got a good thing going. But I didn't used to like fall. My dad always said fall was his favorite season. And I thought, well, it's because your birthday's in September. So obviously. But I remember I was in one of my classes at BYU, and it was an interior design I don't know why I took that. I am not a design human, but I thought it'd be really fun. And I thought this guy was super cute. So two wins for taking this course. But I remember she told me, she said, fall, there is something about fall when it is just crisp outside. She said, there is this like love and magic and just this like vibrancy in the air that you don't feel any other time of year. And I remember walking on BYU's campus and feeling that like crisp magic feeling that I had never experienced before, just in how she said it. And ever since then, I was hook, line, sinker, a fall foliage peeper lover. Like that was my thing due to that. So
it's a great time of the year. I think, no matter where you are, but it really is that little bit of change in the air, football season's coming in with the high school and college, and it gets pretty exciting.
It is. So thanks for starting my morning out reminding me, hey, it's fall everywhere else in the world, even though I'm sitting in sunny Florida over here. So, all right, Laura, let's dive into hygiene because, girl, you've got some hygiene nuggets and I can't wait because, topic of today, bloody Prophys. I'm so excited because bloody Prophys happen in so many dental practices and it's such a gross phrase for me to say, like bloody Prophy. So let's dive into bloody Prophys.
Yes. So, it was really kind of the coding system gurus to give us a new code for that scaling in the presence of gingival inflammation. And I think many of our offices really aren't making a great use of that particular code. They're going in, they're going, I'm just doing a prophy. And we don't like that word just anyway, because we are doing more than a prophy. So let's kind of look into when it really is appropriate to use this D4346, the scaling in the presence of gingival inflammation.
Okay. And let's also, before we dive into that, let's talk for those who, might be guilty of doing a bloody prophy or they don't even know what a bloody prophy is, because what I see, and Laura, I'm not a hygienist, so I want your input. You are a hygienist. You've been in the field. You're helping me with our hygiene consulting program. But I see, and I'm not sure why, so I kind of want to think about psychology of it, I see a lot of hygienists, and the reality is you're working on a patient, you're going sub G, so you're not just doing a prophy anymore, but it's like, why do hygienists do this? Is it the fear of having to tell the patient that you're doing it? Is it a fear of money? Is it that we're just, we don't want to bring them back for scaling and root planing because that messes up our production and it's just easier to get it done that day? They're already in the chair and it's not really that much. Like, what is the reasoning from your angle that hygienists do these bloody prophys when it's not a prophy and we're just coding out for prophys? What have you found, or what's your experience on that?
I would say there's probably, in my general opinion, there are two reasons why this happens that I can, really give some thought to. One is, it is just what you have done forever and forever. And, what about these new codes and why aren't they covered and why are they covered? So it's that it's what I've always done. So I'm not really comfortable with something new because I don't know much about it. So it could be part of that, you're just in your normal routine.
Sure. That's fair. That's a good point.
Absolutely. It's just, you're scared, and I don't really want to have to go out of my comfort zone. I think the other reason is also when these news codes come out, we always say, is it covered by insurance? My insurance, we listen on your podcast all the time. Insurance is just a bucket of money. It's a coupon. There's only so much that they give you a year. So why would you go into a podiatrist to get your toenail repaired, but they bill out to amputate your toe? So that's really what we're doing. We're going in and we're actually performing a scaling in the presence of gingival inflammation. If we've got more than 30% of that mouth is inflamed, it's bleeding, it's really not in great shape. It is not healthy. So why are we billing for a healthy code, a prophylaxis, and really when things aren't correct? So the fear again is why? I don't know if their insurance covers this. I don't want them to have to pay more out of pocket. Well, you're really truly, misdiagnosing, mistreating, and you, in essence, can be committing insurance fraud because you're not telling them exactly what you're seeing and you're doing.
That's a good, I mean, when it gets sticky like that, I mean, we just think we're just doing what we've always done. And the reality is no, we're not. We bill what we do that day. And I think so often I'm guilty of this. So maybe I'm speaking to some other women out there that are like me. Maybe I'm on my own soapbox today. I mean, I'm a leaf peeper, so I could be on my own soapbox today. But I think oftentimes we also undervalue ourselves. And so it's like, well, I don't want to charge more. And does insurance do this? And I think we almost tie our work to money. And so we don't want to inconvenience people. We don't want people to dislike us because of finances. When the reality is, guys, guess what? It has nothing to do with you as a hygienist. It has nothing to do with you as a dentist. It has nothing to do. What we're doing is we're performing a service. It's just like Walmart or Target or any of those grocery stores or any store or any service, a masseuse. We go in and we pay money for a service that is done. If a masseuse doesn't do a haircut, they're not going to charge us for a haircut. If they're giving us a massage, it's not like, well, I'm just going to charge you for a pedicure. No, they did a massage, so they're going to charge for a massage. And I think we're just in this world of connecting identity and self-esteem and our reputations. And like you said, our routine that we've been in for so many years, as opposed to recognizing, hey, guess what? We just did a service. We're going to build a service that we actually did. And we're going to find a way. There is always a solution to finances. There's always a solution to paying for this. Our job is to diagnose, to treat the patients in the best way possible, and to bill what we did for that day. Are you on my same page, Laura? Like, what's your take on that? Because that's what I see.
That I think it's true. Like I said, we want to be, the hygienist. Everybody loves to see the hygienist for the most part. You know, they're your buddy. You know, yeah, it's great to be your buddy, but you know, why aren't we treating them as though they are our best friend and doing what's right and what is what is the most advantageous for the patient for their oral and systemic health? If they're running around with a mouthful of gingivitis and bleeding gums and, they're not a healthy individual, even if it's just the oral cavity, the inflammation is going to be traveling systemically somewhere at some point in time.
Totally. And I like that you said, what would you do for your best friend? And,
exactly.
They should be your really good friends, and we would want to treat them in that best friend manner. So I love all this. And the reality is, I think sometimes we like to live in this ignorance is bliss. Like, I don't want to know the new codes because I like to just do my thing. But the new codes are built for the issues that are seen. And also it gives you an area that you can code this properly. You can code out what you're doing, because I have heard, once again, I don't know this, that there's a gray line sometimes of, well, is it a Prophys? Is it an SRP? Like, what is it really? It kind of is falling in that gray zone. Once again, I have no idea how that gray zone exists, because I don't see that personally. So Laura, tell us a little bit about this, the coding, and then also how we talk to our patients about this. So it is treating our best friends in the way we would want to be treated if we were a best friend.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. We have a continuum of health with our gums. We have healthy, where we have no bleeding, we have no bone loss. Then we start to get into, like you said, that gray zone. It's kind of invisible. We don't see a whole lot of bone loss on our x-rays, but we see a lot of inflammation in there and bleeding on probing. So we're heading into this gray area of, okay, when does it hop over from, is it a 4 millimeter inflammation or is it a 5 millimeter with some bone loss? You're like in that gray area. And that's when you're struggling with yourself going, what's the best plan of action here for this patient? And what's going to be the right thing to do? When we hop over and we can visually start to see that there is bone loss, and now we're seeing a progression in disease, meaning that we are now seeing active periodontal problems going on. We're seeing some increased bone loss in some areas. We're seeing some more bleeding. We're seeing some other issues going on. So those are our three indicators. We have nothing going on. We have this gray area, and then we see active periodontal disease going on. So those can be like your three little indicators to go from, okay, this is a healthy prophy, a D1110, or even a D1120 for a child. And then we hit that gray area. Oh, okay, so I'm having bleeding in like 30% of the sites that I am, or inflammation too. I have 4 to 5 millimeter pocketing. It's iffy. That is when we're going to be transferring over into that scaling in the presence of gingival inflammation. So that's our middle of the road, our D4346. And then we're starting to see again, or this is a new patient or a returning perio maintenance patient and they fell off the wheel, the wagon, etc. Then we're heading back into that zone of this is now looking at a scaling and a root planing patient. We need to get them back and get them back on track so we can get them back to their perio maintenance, our D4910. So again, those are like three indicators. I'm not going to give away all my secret sauce for all of you listeners, because I want you to be able to also go out there and do a little bit of research on your own too. And maybe you could work with Kiera's Dental Consulting and have someone come in and work with your office as well and help to get your whole periodontal program back on track if that is what you feel you need. But those, again, in a very simple way, is the three areas that you need to look for: health, inflammation, and progression of disease.
Totally. I love that. I love that so much. And I think it's one of those things of, guys, knowledge is power. So when you know these codes, when you know how you can explain it to your patient, half of it is just the little verbiage of how to say it. And I've said this before. We've talked about this before. I think the magic phrase, and I totally swiped this from somewhere else. I think Vicki McNamara said it one time of, we now know. So if that patient's been coming to your practice forever and you're like, gosh, shoot, how am I supposed to have this conversation with them? They're no longer a perfect prophy. We've got to have this conversation. We don't have to go back in time and say we missed anything, or, hey, you've been my patient for the last 20 years and I've never talked to you about this. That's okay. I feel like just because we've done some things in the past doesn't mean that's what we have to do today. So some super fantastic verbiage for all of you is that we now know that you have this today. People can't argue with what it is today. And it's crazy that those simple little words, I see it in practices continually where patients don't argue. It's like, okay, well, we now know this is where we are today. So guess what? 6 months ago, you were totally fine. That's great. Or 6 months ago, I didn't choose to have this conversation with you. That's okay. You are fixing it today, and you're utilizing those codes, like you were saying, Laura, of utilizing the codes that are there. So that way it's in that gray zone. We now have a coding for that gray zone of how to use it. And hygienists, a lot of you ask me, well, how can I increase my production? This isn't being sneaky and slidey of adding and tacking on fees. It's just billing out what you're actually doing in a proper way.
Totally agree. And, on the other part of that aspect, you're doing your patient education and you're saying what we now know today is, we're seeing bleeding and we're seeing more inflammation around your gums. So we need to treat this in a different direction. So these are our next steps. So again, when we look at, if we're needing to code out a D4346 for the scaling in the presence of inflammation, our little red lights go off in our head and go, oh, I don't know if insurance will cover this. Okay, well, let's have a backup plan. On every dental insurance claim that's out there, there is a box in there that you can put in remarks. And what you can also add into that remarks box is this. If coverage for a D4346 is not a covered benefit in this plan, please consider alternative coverage for prophylaxis. So that way you at least have made the effort there, and the insurance company may consider that as an alternative benefit, not saying that it's the actual procedure you did. But if they're going to recode it, and that's the insurance company, that's not you. You are not the one changing the diagnosis or the treatment. It's the insurance company saying, okay, well, we don't cover that, but we'll consider this. It's just the same as insurance companies say, well, we don't cover composite restorations on posterior teeth, but we'll pay for an amalgam, even though you didn't do an amalgam.
Totally. And I like the verbiage of how you can do those remarks. Because I think once again, knowledge is power. So if you know these little hacks and these little tricks, something else I've seen is have your billing department or the people that are looking at the claims give you as hygienists some feedback on them. I don't play the insurance game at all. I definitely feel like insurance is a coupon. It's a nice benefit, but it is not what dictates treatment. With that said, I think we should do everything on our end to help our patients get covered, because they do have that as a benefit. So let's utilize it. And I do know with a lot of them, making sure we have FMXs, as crazy as that sounds, I just heard that in an office yesterday, that they're getting denied on a lot of their perio because they don't have an FMX. So making sure you guys are watching your current FMX x-rays to have those on hand. Also, this is so crummy, but guess what? We've got to play the game, and it's going to make you guys faster. You can totally listen to the episode Kristen and I did the other day on how to speed up your hygiene appointments, and she even got it down to the minute of how to do that. But having an FMX, taking intraoral pictures of that bleeding, because you can chart all the way across that there's bleeding, but some insurance companies are still even denying that on the perio charting. So snapping some pictures of that so the insurance company can see the bleeding in those areas, then having your perio chart in there. This is why we perio chart once a year as well. Take the intraoral photos and then have a strong narrative as to why you did this code. Insurance companies are super awesome, and they're trying to deny in every way, shape, and form. So cross our T's, dot our I's, and make sure you've got that FMX, your x-rays, the intraoral pictures, and your perio charting with the narrative. And I know, as I say that, it feels kind of gross of, whoa, that's a lot of things. But the cool thing is, as a hygienist, those are things you should already be doing as part of your normal routine anyway. So it shouldn't really be anything extra other than having that narrative. And like you said, Laura, you can put in the additional remarks to consider alternative benefits if they don't cover that as a code.
Yes, absolutely. And none of us really like playing the insurance game. Insurance game, like you said, they should not dictate how we treat a patient. That is not how we're trained in either dental school or in dental hygiene school. You assess, you diagnose, you plan, you implement, and you evaluate. Those are the pieces of our dental hygiene spectrum, as that is what we are supposed to be doing. So don't let the fear of what insurance covers for your patient dictate how you should be treating them. If they were your mother sitting in your chair, you would treat them as though they were your mother. And Lord, I hope you love your mama. And
if not, then use your dad or your sister, whomever.
Then your dad or whoever you love. But treat them as though they were your loved one, and do the right thing. And then the other thing is that when you're done with your treatment and you explained everything to your patient, make sure you're documenting that in your notes. It should be something to the reason why in your perio note what you were seeing. More than 30% of the sites had gingival inflammation. They should be able to cut and paste anything that you say in your note and give that to an insurance company if that is what the insurance company requires.
Exactly. And I'm going to piggyback on an idea from just a smidge ago where you mentioned about how you've got to diagnose and we need to educate our patients with your verbiage of, we now know today, this is where we are. As you were saying that, and I thought, with these bloody Prophys, I think so often we don't realize that we're doing a disservice. We think we're doing a service. So I'm going to just grossly admit all of my flaws here on the air. But I used to be, and I've admitted this before, I used to be a bad flosser. Truth be told, I work in dentistry. I coach people on it, highly living outside of my integrity of you should floss, but I don't floss. And as silly as that is, I remember for years, Jason would ask me and say, hey, Kiera, do you want a floss pick tonight as we're laying in bed? And I'm like, no, I don't floss. Like literally it was given to me. I would tell him no. He's like, you coach this, that people should floss. And I'm like, whatever, let me be a hypocrite and go to bed. So now when I went to the dentist, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I have been a prophy for my whole life and I'm still a prophy. But when I had a few little 3s and 4s where the hygienist didn't sugarcoat because they knew who I was and they didn't want to make, and it was crazy because I had one hygienist tell me I had 4s. I went back 6 months later and went to another hygienist who's like, oh no, you don't have 4s anywhere. They totally misprobed. Then I went to another hygienist 6 months later. They probed and they're like, you've got a couple 4s, Kiera. And I was like, so that middle hygienist wanted to be more of my friend instead of my educator. The third one who told me, you've got some 4s, Kiera, I don't want to see you getting into perio. You don't have any bleeding, but you do have some 4s. And I said, and she's like, so what can we do? Like the solution to this is to floss. So what do we need to do? And I was like, I can commit my Easter resolution was to floss 3 times a week because for me, like truly, I was that gross person that didn't floss. But I will say that changed me. I floss every single day. You guys, I went from being a non-flosser, no days a week, to I floss every single day. I think in the last like 8-9 months, I have missed maybe 5 to 7 days. And that was just due to being on the road without floss, which I have fixed. We've got some backup floss now. But I want to point out how much you guys can change people. Had that hygienist just done the probing on me and gone along and said I was totally fine, I wouldn't have changed my actions. I didn't change my actions. But because they were serious with me and they told me what I needed to do and what could happen, I changed. I went from somebody, and that's where I think the education piece of doing the service, sure, guess what? It's going to cost a little extra money. Fantastic. That's a piece. Guess what? They did the actions that got them here, or there's genetics and that's just part of it. I mean, I'm a redhead. I pay extra money for sunscreen and dermatology because that's my genetic makeup. That's nobody's fault. That's just an extra cost I incur because of who I am. And so I think for all you hygienists listening, with what Laura said of as the patient, not as the hygienist, I'm begging you to tell me what I need to do, because when you're serious with me and you tell me, I change or I don't change and I can pay the fee. But because somebody actually was straightforward with me, my actions changed. Not had they sugarcoated, not had they just done a bloody prophy on me. Like I would feel so sad if I knew someone was doing a bloody prophy on me and I had no idea for the bulk of my life because they didn't want to tell me what was really going on. So there's my personal experience. And I don't know, Laura, what you feel hearing that from the patient side, being the hygienist.
Excuse me. Okay. In the morning here on the East Coast, apparently. Anyway, you're talking about from the patient side how they would feel about what my treatment is. I want my practitioner to tell me everything. Now, is it that because that I'm a dental hygienist? It could be we're a little all OCD, we've got issues, but I think every patient should have the straightforward look at what we see and what we can do to help them. Excuse me one second. So, from the patient's perspective, when I sit in the dental chair, I same thing. I want my dental hygienist to tell me what they see, what's going on. Are they monitoring, the recession I have on number 15, whatever. So you should be doing the same thing for your patients as well. Please be honest with them. They may not like what you have to say, but perhaps they need to listen, and again, this is not lecturing. This is just informing your patient of what you see and what your recommendations are. If they don't know, they don't know.
Exactly.
So they're going to be coming back and having another bloody prophy.
And how does it feel for you knowing, so let's say you're the hygienist and I just shared my story as the patient of like being so grateful. Does that, like, what I'm hoping is, does that change your view as a hygienist at all? Thinking like, hey, there are patients, and literally Kiera changed from being a non-flosser to a 7-day-a-week flosser because of one conversation that a hygienist chose to have when 2 other hygienists didn't want to even have that.
Hey, dude, that's like a mini celebration in the dental chair right there. Like we're in the operator's chair going, oh, yeah, we've got 3 days a week. We're going to go for 4. We're going to go for 4.
Exactly.
So, hey, that's a great, because we can see the change in your health. And we know that ultimately, again, the mouth is a part of a body, of your whole body. So it is a part of the systemic system. If we know you're healthier with your mouth, we know that possibly you're going to be healthier all around. Just leading back to those inflammation factors that can affect the rest of your body.
Right. Well, Laura, there we go. I am convinced, and I hope all of you are convinced, not to do bloody Prophys. Laura's given you guys some great codes, some verbiage to put on those claims. So for those of you billers or office managers listening to this, check to see, are we billing out those codes? Educate your hygienist. Have them listen to this podcast. Utilize this information that's already out there. You just may be underutilizing. I think one of the drastic things that I see in offices is the underutilization of codes. And I mean, there's so many codes out there. And like you said at the very beginning, we practice and we're in a routine and a rhythm of just build this out. This is what we've always done. But guess what? Things do change. So I hope all of you, like, the challenge would be, go take a look. Can you start utilizing those new codes? Educate yourself on the new codes, and then check and see. I would challenge all hygienists out there to just start with one patient that has been a bloody prophy for you each day. Hopefully you don't have one every day, but if you do, at least do one per day or one per week, where you have the conversation with them about where they are today and what we need to do. Have that confidence, go in for it. Don't be afraid of it. And it's okay. If insurance denies it, that's okay. There's always a solution that we can find. Your job is to educate, to diagnose appropriately, and to bill out what you did for that day. So that would be my action items for people. Laura, do you have any other action items you want to add to that, or what are your final thoughts on this?
Perfect action items. And then the other thing I would add to it is make sure you have a plan for that patient, for that bloody prophy. You really don't want them to go 6 months with what you just had going on. So have a plan, whether they come back in 30 days to just be reevaluated and checked, then you can bill out a reevaluation code, a D0170, I think it is, or if they need a prophy in 30 days, let's get the prophy done. So have a plan of action for them to return. It's just like scaling and root planning. We want them back within 6 weeks by the time we're done. Same thing with a bloody prophy. Don't let them go another 6 months with all this going on. This is not good. So that would be my other little nugget, is to make sure you follow up.
I love that. And I think it's brilliant, because you guys, there's no time like the present to act on what's going on. When people leave, guess what? The cereal prices at Costco are back on sale. They're thinking about their home life, different things. But when they're in the chair, I love that. Whenever we do events, whenever we coach, you've got to get people to create an action plan in the moment, because they're much more committed to it right then, right there, than they will be 6 months from now. So excellent. I love that, Laura.
Well, it was certainly very nice to talk. I'd rather talk like Bloody Mary than Bloody Prophy. But, it's great talking about, as a hygienist, we like talking about these things in the morning.
I love it.
Hopefully we didn't gross anybody else out.
The first thing, guys, on your morning drive in, I'm hoping you're listening to this, getting all jazzed up, ready to go get those Prophys done. So I love it. And I appreciate you, Laura, for being on the show with me, for waking up early and taking time out of your day. So thank you. And thank you for sharing your knowledge today with us.
My pleasure. Hope to share some more with you in the future.
Always. You will always be back on. So, all right, Dental A Team listeners, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Go implement this. You guys hear me say this every time. Don't just listen to it. Actually implement. This is something you can implement today. Send this podcast to your hygienist, have them listen to it. Let's get you guys off those bloody Prophys and start diagnosing and treating in such a great way. So, Laura, thank you again. Thank you, Dental A Team listeners, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.